Trust issues are BS, and I'm going to explain why in this video. There's an old African proverb that says, "When there is no enemy within, the enemy on the outside can do us no harm." And as someone who practices radical self-respect, we will know that all someone really means when they say they have trust issues is that they don't trust themselves to do one of three things. To either screen cautiously and properly before they catch feelings for someone or rely on them too heavily. They don't trust themselves to assert a boundary if it's been crossed or they've been disrespected. Or they don't trust themselves to walk away when they're not being treated the way they would like to be treated. That is all trust issues mean, is that someone doesn't trust themselves to do one of those three things properly. And it really is that simple. A lot of people get all caught up and saying, "Oh, I can't trust this person. I'm so concerned. What are they going to do?" And it's like, no. When we practice radical self-respect, we take a look at our side of the street. We work on the things that we can work on. And if we're cautious, we screen properly. We do not lose our emotional independence. We do not become dependent on someone else. We don't become addicted to how someone else makes us feel. We know about the pitfalls of narcissists or people with borderline personality disorder or codependents or addicts and alcoholics. We know these pitfalls. We see them. And if we're screening properly, we're going to pick up on most of these things. Now, as we practice radical self-respect, we are not going to give anyone more responsibility or rely on them to do things that we don't think they can handle, right? And we might do little tests at first. Oh, can they handle this? See if they do it. Can they handle this? See if they do it. And for a lot of the screening process, the toxic people are going to weed themselves out. And so again, it comes down to a trust issue is someone not being able to trust themselves. Not trusting themselves to screen out the toxic people. Not trusting themselves to assert a boundary. Not trusting themselves to walk away when necessary. Because if you can do all three of those things, right? Screen properly and appropriately without falling emotionally dependent or becoming addicted to another person and how they make us feel. You can assert a boundary when your boundary has been crossed, or establish a boundary before the boundary can even be crossed. Or three, be able to walk away if someone refuses to respect our boundaries or to treat us the way we want to be treated. If we can do all three of those things, there are no more trust issues. That's why trust issues are BS. All someone is saying when they say they have trust issues is, "I do not trust myself to act appropriately. I do not trust myself to practice radical self-respect." When someone practices radical self-respect, trust issues are no longer a thing. We weed out the toxicity. We assert boundaries when necessary. We establish boundaries before they can be crossed in cases when that's also necessary. We recognize the difference between controlling and boundaries, right? Boundaries is when we tell people, okay, this is what I find acceptable, and these will be the consequences if that is crossed. And then we trust ourselves to follow through, as opposed to being controlling, which is a little more manipulative and is based in fear. Fear that if only other people on the outside of us would do what we want them to do, we'll feel at peace on the inside. When we have boundaries, when we practice radical self-respect, we are at peace on the inside, no matter what. And we might be a little happier when people decide to respect their boundaries, but we're not going to let it move us off of our emotional center. Remember the African proverb, "When there is no enemy within, the enemy on the outside can do us no harm." Trust issues are BS. Remember that. Remember, screen out toxic people, assert boundaries when necessary, establish boundaries when necessary, and have the courage and the faith to walk away when we're not being treated properly and our boundaries are not being respected. That's why trust issues are BS, and they only really mean someone doesn't trust themselves. Remember, check out my book, Radical Self-Respect, where I talk about issues just like this in that book. It's on Amazon now. And once I've established this mode of living for myself, I'll never go back. Because living with radical self-respect is freedom. Absolute freedom in a way I've never experienced before. Thank you for watching. Please comment below on what your thoughts about this video are. I'd love to hear them. So again, thank you for watching and have a good night.